Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode here of the Dota 2 recap show featuring Danog and Aries, my two lovely lads from Down Under. Thank you for joining me for the first episode here covering Dreamleague Season 19, Group Stage number 1. Danog, what's up with you, mate? How you feeling today?
Feeling good, feeling good. Just after a long night of casting, but there was a long night of games as well from Dreamleague, and a lot of stuff that we have to cover.
Yeah, 100% Aries. How you feeling, mate?
Good, mate. It's a lovely Saturday, even though it's raining out here. Like Danog said, we had a lot of casting yesterday, but we also got to finish up and watch some Dream League games, so I'm doing well.
Hell yeah. All right, so let's try and have a little bit of an explainer for everybody at home. The way that this show is going to work is basically we're going to break down each stage from Dream League Season 19 and potentially further tournaments as well, so you guys at home don't have to go back and watch every single VOD to try and figure out what's happening in Dota right now. So, Dream League Season 19, it was announced a couple of weeks ago. Super exciting tournament because it is a separation from Division 1 going in towards the major, so we're not just sitting around and waiting for our top teams to be able to play some Dota. So, group stage number 1 from April 9th to the 12th is where we have 16 teams, split them into two groups of 8, and then we're going to figure out the top 4 from each one of those two groups, put them into another group stage, which is going to go from April 14th to April 20th, where the top 4 teams from those remaining 8 teams will then go into a double elimination bracket on the 22nd of April to the 23rd of April. And the winner of this, boys, gets all the way to the Riyadh Masters in 2023. This is massive because not only is the prize pool $1 million, the fact that you get direct qualifications to the Riyadh Masters later on in the year just means that there's this like massive supplement of like third-party prize pool.
Yeah, how much was that again? 15 mil for Riyadh?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
That's pretty hype, and
That's a lot of money.
that's a lot of money. I mean, there were, God, I can't even remember how many people at Riyadh last year. Was it like 12, 16? But, you know, I like doing these gradual qualification, whereas last year there were just teams that were invited that probably shouldn't have been there at the time. So clearly it's going to have a lot more prestige this time around, and it's kind of like a mini TI.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the big thing, right? Is it gives more supplementation to TI. And that's something that I feel like a lot of people in Dota have talked about for years, is the fact that TI is like the end-all and be-all. And now that Riyadh is going to be around giving these teams a little bit of supplementation, then maybe they don't have to rely on the DPC as much as well.
That was always the big critique, right? Where it's just one tournament of the year. Like, that's it. There's nothing else. All your attention is put on TI. So it's nice. Hopefully we're able to get a little bit more events like this as well, where maybe some other organizers will take on the current system that we've got from ESL now with the Pro League.
Yeah, I think this will be a good test for not only the ecosystem, but also other TOs to see whether or not because the change with the DPC it going from like 6 weeks and it being run concurrently with Div 2, I think was the best change for not only like all the Div 2 teams because they get a little bit more eyeballs, but also these Div 1 teams. It gives them the break and also the potential for Tier 3 tournaments. So hopefully we get to see a little bit more. So let's start breaking down the kind of format a little bit more. We touch on the fact that it's 2 group stages that then goes into a playoff stage. I don't know how much personally I feel about it, but I feel like it just gives you the best opportunity for these teams to consistently perform, where you have to go through 2 separate group stages. You're eventually going to have to play everybody, and then you have to do like a top 4 playoff. I guess that kind of means that this win is probably going to be a little bit more important for a lot of these teams going into the major, right?
I think so, and I think it was actually Fly that got interviewed after one of Shopify's wins during Group Stage 1, where he was basically asked, how does this differ from like your experiences playing in Western Europe versus your experiences playing in NA? Because in NA, it's very simple, the formula, right? If you lose to anyone other than TSM or maybe Nouns, you're in serious trouble about getting to the major. So there are so few like 50-50 matches coming through that it just makes it a really stressful situation. Whereas in Western Europe, for example, we've seen this tour, there was a big tiebreaker that went on once again. Every match counts, and I kind of feel like the Dream League follows that same level of consistency, and it just makes it much more exciting watching, right? There's not any real gimme games that, there was no team that was an absolute stomp. There was Nouns taking games off people. There was Enigma Galaxy taking games off people as well, so I liked it.
How about you, Aries? How do you feel about this format, considering it's like, I don't want to say it's brand new, but it's something that we haven't seen in a long time?
I'd say the double group stage is new though, but I really don't have much of an opinion on at the moment. It's more just like I want to see how it plays out and see if they want to continue go. For me, it's just like I think they're experimenting with the double group stage and to see if it fits better than having like a really long playoff system, or even like maybe there could have been an argument for them having only 2 teams eliminated off the back of group 1, and then so you got 6 teams going through from both groups into the playoffs. Maybe that could have been a way to do it, but I mean, double group stage, it's nice. Like you said, we get more games, which is the exciting thing. I mean, that's the big thing, man. At the end of the day, we're all people that just enjoy watching Dota, and if there's any possibility for us to get more games to watch of pretty much the best teams going on, like these are the major teams. These are the best teams in every single region. So the fact that we get to see them now battling out in versus
Shame
each
about
other,
LGD though. Shame about LGD.
it is. That's the big thing. And maybe it would have been nice having another China team there as well, but it's okay.
Too late notice. You can't.
Yes.
You just can't do it on that short amount of information.
Especially going over to the major as well. I'd imagine a lot of those teams probably already had like their major schedules already sorted out, and then going over to a tournament that's a little bit beforehand is probably a little rough. All right, so let's start talking about these groups. So we already touched on the fact that we're in this video going to be covering group stage 1. Next video is going to be group stage 2, and the last video is going to be playoffs as well. So group stage 1, 16 teams, split them into 2 different groups, group A and group B. This is where it started to get interesting, because I know every single time there's groups, there's already been conversations about it, about the major. As soon as groups have been announced, everyone always talks about which group is the group of death. And I think it's always going to be a conversation that we're going to have. So we're just going to talk about the groups right now. We'll have a conversation about who we think had the harder group, which we think is going to be more stacked, etc., etc. So group A consisted of Gaming Gladiators, Shopify Rebellion, Evil Geniuses, TSM, Execration, Team Asta, X Hellraisers, and Entity. And then Group B had Team Liquid, Tundra, Beast Coast, OG, Team Spirit, Talon, Nigma Galaxy, and Noun. So Nigma, they came in replacing PSG LGD, who had some visa issues. So that's the one, I would say, downside for looking at a Group B is I think they kind of became overall less strong. The fact that, you know, you're replacing Nigma, a team that did get relegated into Division 2, instead of a team like PSG LGD, which topped the group in China. So
I'm actually going to look this up, because how much do you feel about Nigma's involvement was truly that they were the next best team? Because you have a lot of regions to be able to choose from. I think BetBoom's a pretty good team. I think, they got relegated, like you said, and Eridu Thunders didn't. So why aren't Eridu Thunders there? You know, surely that's going to weigh onto things. And it's not like Nigma have really taken any scalps internationally in the recent bit. I think there was actually some justification given on the website about how they do their rankings, but I'm not sure I agree with it 100%.
Yeah, they wrote a tweet longer about it, right? I'm currently on the EPT website, so I'll see if I can figure it out.
It's literally in like the FAQ where it says, why was Nigma invited?
It was worded so weirdly. That's the thing. It was a lot of people were saying like, you're trying to sugarcoat it in a way where you're saying like, yeah, they were justified because of their skill, but that just wasn't kind of the case in the end. Like, if just come out and say you wanted them there because it's Nigma Galaxy, like everyone would be happy with that.
Yeah, it says that between the 2 regions, between Western Europe and Eastern Europe, because of the time frame, right, which is fair due to visas, it said Western Europe was the next eligible region over Eastern Europe for a slot. So that I think that's where a lot of people are like, but why? Because
after getting, how many was it, 4, 6 slots previously, or however many they had?
I think they have, how many Western Europe teams do they have? Like 6 of them already?
Gaiman, OG, Tundra, Entity.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah,
there were 5, because there was 3 NA. There was 3 NA, so there was 5. So I kind of feel like it should have been BetBoom, probably, but then again, we've seen that they've had some visa issues, I suppose, so maybe they would have been too busy to do it anyway. I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, Nigma being selected, apparently they were the next in line from Western Europe as well, which is a fair cop. So, I mean, at the end of the day...
Oh, why? That's what I want to know. Why are they ahead of Eridu Thunders?
Bro. EPT rankings.
Based on what do they want?
I mean, they've got TI winners. They've got TI winners. Surely that's got to count for some points somewhere.
again, it's just like it's Nigma and the players there.
Yeah.
It's kind of back to how some of the invites used to go prior, where it's like, why are you inviting some of these teams?
Mm.
Why
At
did
the end of the
Alliance go to
day-
ESL Malaysia after they won
Yeah.
nothing? You know, it's 'cause it's
Damn,
Alliance.
you really gonna no.
I mean, it's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
true,
It's
true.
true.
Very
That's
true.
true. That's true.
I will say one thing though. I think based on potential, I think they could do really well, Nigma. If they kind of spend a little bit of time getting Miracle, kind of a customized back to playing Dota again. I have seen that he has gone back on his break, so
Mhm.
Yes.
I don't know what that's even going to mean. And now with Samal also standing in for Asta at the major, like, does that mean that Nigma are kaput? Does that mean that Nigma are not going to stay together as this core 5, or we're going to have the same core 3, and we're going to try and bring in some more core players across Western Europe or even Eastern Europe to
Did
try
you,
and shore them up?
Did you see what Doracio said as well about Nigma? Did you see that
Oh,
interview?
What do you say?
I read the
Dude.
Reddit thread about it.
Oh god, he said some fighting words as well. Pretty much saying like, it doesn't matter if you place Amar, the issue's still there. You bring Miracle in, the issue's still there. He said it a little bit more vulgar as well.
I think he said they're carrying 3 people, basically, right?
Yeah, yeah. Then he kind of tried to explain it a little bit further and say like, yeah, I don't know, that they're carrying a couple of members, but. Which was interesting to hear him speak about Nigma. While the games were going on, we saw in the webcams though, like they still really look like they're a team that love playing together. Like Samel is, it was known for quite a while that he wanted to play with those guys. He wanted to play with Kuro and GH and MC, and even in the game where there was, I can't remember what game it was. It was like their last game of the of Dreamleague, and they were like, it was a 1-22 kill count or something, and they were just smiling in the webcams, like they're having a good time. They like playing together, but it's not converting into victories. So I don't
like
know
playing with you guys, but we're not going to fucking win anything. That's the thing.
Yeah, I think there definitely kind of needs to be a conversation about like if they really want to start getting championships back underneath their belt, about whether or not it is going to be, do we want to hurt some feelings, or do we want to try and get ourselves some dubs under the board, because there is some issues with that team. I'm not a big brain analyst by any means, so I wouldn't be able to tease out the solution, especially from TI winners in the past. So I just hope, because I enjoy watching all of those players on that roster, I hope that they do find some form again. Maybe it might be time for some of the players to hang up the mice. I mean, it's at a point now where, Kuro's been playing since Dota 1. He's been playing since TI 1, that maybe it might be time for him to just say, hey, it's coach time. Or maybe even MC. Like some of those guys have been around for a long time. There's no shame in retiring, especially after being a TI winner. I think that the shame might come in if you go to Division 2 and then they don't perform in Div 2, then that's when you might be like,
I think what gets people annoyed is that there is still some serious quality on that team.
Yeah.
And then I think they may feel that they're being held back by some of these people that either aren't trying to their fullest potential, or, they just don't have it anymore, And I think with Samael now getting the opportunity with Asta, I think people are going to be feeling very happy about that. People obviously still love Miracle. I saw a poll the other day that was like, if there was one player that could come back full time, who would you want it to be? And it was like Ana, Jerax, Miracle, and maybe it was Notel. And Miracle was like 60% of the votes. People love him. He is the original pub star. He is the original like 1v5 player.
Yeah.
And people just want him to be able to succeed. Just one last thing before we go off the Enigma topic. The thing I still feel bad for Ooredoo Thunders. They finished 5th in the DPC. And imagine what an experience that would have been for, people like TA2000, Noob, Weta, Omar, and Kauri, who've never really had that many chances to play against teams from out of their region, to have that chance. Like, it would have been such a good experience for them. So I really think they've been kind of robbed here.
Yeah, I think it kind of comes back to the EPT ranking system being around for a lot longer than Ooredoo Thunders have been. And that's probably the issue that they had, not having that many EPT points.
All right.
So that
makes sense though. It's like I didn't think of it like that.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I would say against Ooredoo Thunders is they've recently been able to come up and have a good shout. I think if like EPT points didn't matter, 100% Ooredoo Thunder, bring them in there. I think they would absolutely crush that group too.
If we're going to count it for the past 5 years, bring in TNC. They've got some big results over there.
Okay. I think we're going a little too deep, a little too ham on the EPT ranking system. It's doing its stuff. It's working out. I think this is a system that
99% of it is right.
I think this is a system that just needs to be implemented for a little bit longer for it to even itself back out again. Because currently you're looking at, like OG as being a top 5 team, which haven't been in Division 1. So either way, I think that system is going to work itself out. Eventually, we just need more of these tournaments to go through. So that was a long discussion about Nigma specifically. So let's start talking about day 1 results, because I think the fact that group stage 1, what is it, 4 days long, and then a 5th day for tiebreakers. So there was a lot of games going on all the time. There was 4 best of 2s going across 4 different streams for 4 days, which I think was absolutely bonkers. But when you're getting through 16 teams and best of 2s, round robins, like, you kind of need to have that much going. So I'm not going to go through every single one of these matches because I think everyone's just going to get bored listening to me talk about stuff.
Well, 20 minutes in this game.
So
actually,
I will say some interesting results that I think probably could have shaped maybe some further days. The big one for me is Liquid and Talon going 1-1. That series not going 2-0 one way or another, I think really put a lot of hope in the basket of Talon fans, because day 1 they went 1-1 versus Liquid, they went 1-1 versus Beast Coast, 2 of the teams that are probably a little harder to play up against internationally, but unfortunately for them, as the days do go on, they don't really kind of live up to their expectations.
Shit the
bed. Yeah, they definitely do. But
I mean, they got 2-0'd by Nigma, and they lost a game to Nouns after previously winning a game in 18 minutes. And I think they should have at least won one of those games against Nigma. They should have 2-0'd Nouns, and I watched them throw 2 games against, I want to say, Spirit and Tundra. So immediately just pop 4 more wins onto the board for Talon, take a few wins away from Spirit and Tundra, and then what do you get? You get them qualifying. So it's like as simple as that. It was legit throws coming through from those. So I think the late game decision making, as well as Jabs is a great player. We've seen way too often his laning stage him get absolutely crushed just because of how aggressive he likes to play. So I think he needs to try and find that balance.
That's always been the criticism as well for Southeast Asia, right? It's just the consistency that's really plagued them. We saw T1 have a really good performance at any major, but then they weren't able to back it up. I mean, Talon, the most recent major, then you just get bodied in the games you shouldn't be getting bodied in. So that's really the big thing. And when is that consistency going to change for C though? Because it's like this region's very strong. There's a lot of talent. We're seeing the talent get poached as well, going to different regions, going to China, going to Europe now with Armel being on Secret. But it's like, when are some things going to change? When are you going to be able to take games that you should be taking over those teams?
I think that can kind of come back to it's kind of like the chicken and the egg, right? Like, you need the consistency internationally for the top team in Southeast Asia to then bring that back to the DPC to force other teams to play this high tier, consistent kind of Dota. But you need to have that kind of consistent fight in the DPC first to be able to bring that internationally, I think. So it's kind of going to just take, I think.
We'll see how they do in Berlin.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, this tournament, I don't want to say it has an asterisk on it, but there still is the Berlin major for a lot of these teams. So if they bomb out in the Berlin major after getting top 3 at Lima, then you might start to say, hey, Talon, what's the go here? Like, why are you guys not consistently being able to do stuff?
Well, who knows what's going to happen, because patch is coming as well.
Yes.
So.
We'll get to that. We will get to the patch, because
that's so eager to speak about the patch, dude.
He's so happy
for so long.
Dude, like,
I don't blame him.
when Snare and I were on Western Europe, we had a chat to Yamich about it. And I asked him, I was like, oh, what is the one thing that you want out of the patch? And he said, please no Muerta. He's like, Muerta, go bye-bye. That's what he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
He didn't want her to be anywhere near captain's mode or her to be a part of Dota, because he thinks she's a mega busted, which I can kind of agree with.
Just to keep this Dreamleague related as well, for the playoffs, the last stage, that will be on the new patch, assuming all these leaks are correct.
And potential tiebreaker day as well. In group stage 2.
I feel like they'll wait for that. I think they'll wait for that.
So
surely.
if group stage 2 goes to tiebreakers, they will be playing on the new patch.
It
If
probably
gets dropped on
will.
the same day.
Come on, let's be real. It's going to go to tiebreakers.
Oh, yeah.
It's just so that's hype. That's hype.
Yeah. So, and then we'll have all of playoffs, and there's even going to be Div 2 matches that all 3 of us are going to.
Yeah, buddy, we get the first one, Lucky. Let's go.
It's going to be nuts. So, circling back to this day 1 of competition, I think from what I saw, from a lot of these teams was they were still just trying to figure out international competition after the Lima Major. They all went back to the DPC regions. Now they've come back to international competition on this newish patch where they're still trying to figure out what all these teams want to try and play for. An interesting thing for me that I saw between certain teams like Entity, there's been a lot more Pugna that has come through on day number 1. Entity were really pushing this kind of Pugna Storm Mirana combination. It lost both games up against Shopify Rebellion. So they kind of backpacked this Pugna idea. And Storm was another hero that was picked a shitload in day number 1. He was picked 12 times and only won 2 of the games on day number 1 for a hero
How many
that
times
was
with a Pugna? How many times with an IO? Like that's really what I want to know because it
that
still
I'll have
feels
to
like it needs
check.
that buff, that steroid to really be enabled. It's not quite 5 Null Talismans level Storm Spirit, but still feels pretty damn strong.
So what I can see here was the 2 games from Entity that he was playing with a Pugna. And I think that's the only battery hero that he played with.
Okay.
And they were 2 losses as well.
I still think it's a good hero.
Yeah.
And I think you can afford even playing an IO together with it. The big weakness with IO is that you lack damage heavily as a result of it. But I mean, who does more damage than like a 15, 20-minute Storm Spirit? Not many.
Very true. So that was kind of interesting that day number 1 we saw teams experiment and then the experiment went to the wayside. Like I don't think Storm got touched for the next couple of days.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine some of the issues with the hero is that he struggles against teams that like to group up in 5-man early. And that's kind of what we have at the moment with all these offlanes building auras where early on Storm, you can really only maybe blow up one hero with your entire mana pool. And if you're going to someone with a mechanism or like a pipe, like now that pickoff potential gets very difficult. And if you're jumping inside a 5-man fight, you're gonna get stunned as well, without BKB. So maybe it's just at the moment the current meta with all the auras we're seeing on the offlaners and even the 4s as well for that matter. Like screw the offlaners, we're seeing a lot of position 4s go for a bunch of team fighting utility as well. So that's a potential big reason of why he's struggling.
And I think we'll probably end up seeing a whole lot more of that, and so that's maybe why that we're seeing these teams move away from the Storm Spirit and try and find these heroes that just allow them to get those easier, more sustained fights. We're seeing like a shitload of Ember Spirit being floated around in both DPC as well as Dreamleague because I think he just allows you to kind of have that poke, and then as soon as one of these, the mech's been popped or the pipe's been popped or whatever, you can just go in after you've already gotten through it, and then it just means that you don't overcommit too much. So I like the transitions that we're seeing here between these teams. Is there anything else that stood out to either one of you two after day number 1? I thought Hellraisers going 2-2 in day number 1 gave me a little bit more hope for Eastern Europe, but alas, didn't work out.
Really, I think day 1 turned out pretty much as expected. Maybe a slight underperform from Asta. I really thought that they're good in China, bad against international competition. I thought that had gone away ever since TI and then the major. But I mean, technically it's not on LAN, so maybe that's still where they feel like they can take that extra step.
Seems like there's some big internal issues going though with Asta. Like they got rid of ROTK. We're starting to hear about the manager. He's being very vocal on Weibo, I think is what it's called, where speaking about XWY, formerly known as Yi. So it seems like at the moment Asta have got a very difficult time to try and replace Ori. But I think for me, another standout, you just mentioned Asta. For me, Shopify. They went 3-1. That's a great start as well, where they got a 1-1 tie versus Gaming Gladiators, of course, the major winners, and then they were able to 2-0 Entity. And that, of course, is with Mikey the stand-in, who had a lot of question marks come into it. Like, how is he going to perform? Played on Winter Bears, and man, he has looked incredible for them.
Especially the bat.
Yeah, that is nuts.
And that's a hero that we kind of saw fall out of popularity a little bit with the recent change to the sticky getting increased by 5 mana, which Matt and I did not feel like that was warranted for him to not be as popular. And Mikey's like, don't worry, guys. If I'm a bat rider specialist, I'll prove you wrong. And dude, he's carried a lot of games off the back of that bat rider, and they'll first phase it too. So I think that's a big surprise, the fact that Shopify started so well.
Yeah, and the fact that he's so young, has barely any competitive experience. You're going into a tournament that's $1 million prize pool. You're playing for Shopify Rebellion, a team that a lot of people pick as like a top 3 team when they're at full strength, and you just slot in. And, Bob was just first picking your hero for you and just putting a lot of emphasis on you, just saying, hey, you need to replace Arbed, so we're going to first pick your hero. You're going to play the same 2 heroes throughout the entire tournament, but you're going to crush your lane, and then we're going to be able to play around you. And I think Shopify do a really good job at just enabling him in a lot of these games.
I gotta say, are we gonna see Nigma Mikey come through? He's from Iran. It kind of fits the Arabic theme that they like to go with, with a lot of their players, especially if Samael is going to be going over to China. I know it's on loan, but who knows? Could be a longer stint if he has some success there.
Do we really think it's longer than just the major though? Because it seemed like, I don't know if you guys read some of the Reddit threads, but the Asta players the manager wanted to get some Southeast Asian boys. They wanted Yopaj and Armel, but the guys on Asta did not want to play with someone who did not speak Chinese at all. So
And Samael though.
yeah,
Didn't
kind of
Samael have
a-
a stint on a Chinese team ages ago as well?
I'm pretty sure he stood in. Yes.
Yeah.
But oh man, I can't remember. You remember, Matt? I remembered like some really high.
It was so long ago. It was during his break, right? Like after he won TI. He came back and he stood in for a Chinese team at some tournament, but I can't
I remember
what it was.
like Shadow standing in for Liquid at one point, going the other way, but I don't remember Samael standing in for people. It's boomer brain. Don't worry.
maybe I might be forgetting it. But yeah, I think that could be an interesting tale. And I'm sure there is a boatload of teams right now that are looking at this Mikey kid and saying, yeah, he's 16. Maybe we give him a year floating around on like a Div 2 team. And then if you're a Tier 1 organization in like Western Europe or even Eastern Europe,
Nigma's a Div 2 team. I'm just going to say.
you just snap that boy up after he's had a little bit more competitive experience. Because I
You
think
could just put Samael back to 1, right? If he does come back
True.
for the actual division, and then put Mikey mid. Why not?
Yeah, that is very true. I think that's all rumors and hearsay at this moment. But yeah, I think he definitely has a big career going forward. And
Yes.
from what I've heard, he's pretty fun to play with as well. I believe Jenkins was giving him money to not throw his games and all that kind of stuff. So, if he keeps doing that, then maybe me being a Shopify fan, I might PayPal him a few dollars. But day number 2. So after day number 1, the standings were pretty as expected. I don't think there was too many people that were too upset. Gaiman were tied 3rd, but at that point with a lot of teams being 2-2, there wasn't really much you could tease from the standings. But day number 2 is where things really started to separate. I think day number 1, a lot of teams took their time experimenting with the teams that they had. You were playing not against all the teams in your group. Some of the teams like OG had a very good draw to start off with on day number 1, facing up against Nigma Galaxy and Nouns, 2 of the weaker teams in Group B. Whereas when they got into day number 2, that's when their harder matches started to go. And I think teams like Liquid really started to pop off, Gaming Gladiators really started to pop off, and EG really started to pop off as well. Those guys, I think they performed really, really well on day number 2 and were able to kind of put the South American region on their back for a bit and really start to show that this region with them and Beast Coast are a very scary region.
It's a shame that there's such a big drop for both NA and SA between the 2nd and the 3rd team, right? Because these are the sorts of opportunities that you want those teams to be able to have, right? It's not DPC, it's not going to affect TI, but you got to give the players the experience because that's what they're going to be able to take back. Maybe Beast Coast and EG don't scrim against, Thunder. Thunder's probably the one team that they do, but your Infamouses, they're not Alliance LATAM anymore. They actually got dropped, but this is what you want, right? Because maybe the 3rd place team still scrims against those ones lower than them, and it's going to allow the whole regions to be able to lift up even further.
Yeah, and I think just the fact that both of these 2 teams are now starting to, I would say, consistently do well internationally. I think the Lima Major was a little bit of a blip on the radar for both of those 2 teams. Maybe you were hoping that they would get towards the finals or what have you, being on home soil. But I think from what we've seen from EG and Beast Coast, a lot of their ideas are really starting to work out, and I think they've really been able to figure out what looks good for South American Dota internationally. And just the fact that every single time they come back to the DPC, yeah, they might top both of their groups, but it still just looks like they're going to give that extra couple of years. Because, I mean, Snare and I were talking about this the other day before we went on one of our cars. Like, do you guys remember like 3 or 4 years ago when Western Europe was like one of the worst regions? Where like they would go to like international tournaments and kind of bomb out, and it was all about like China and like North
the dream.
America. And that was
The
when,
dream.
like, that was a few years ago, right? Where we're
Oh, we
looking
haven't
at
heard anything else about it in the past 2 years.
Yeah.
Oh, Western Europe.
Western Europe,
and that's the thing, and that's when South America were getting these like lucky. I don't want to say lucky wins, but they were getting these surprise wins internationally. You're looking at your Thunder Awakens and your Beast Coast and stuff, and everyone was like, "Oh my god!" Like the South America team is beating a Chinese team or beating a Western Europe team. Whereas now you're like, you can't sleep on these South American teams, and it's just going to get to a point where in another couple of years, if South America keep on this upward trend, then it could get to a point.
Teams.
Exactly,
Yes.
it could get to a point where you're looking at South America as having 3 to 4 slots.
The one thing I was worried about when we saw the super house teams get built in EG and Beast Coast, I thought it just might be a replicate of what we see in some of the other regions. I mean, take a look at China with Elephant. I mean, they bombed out, and that was a team with a lot of talent. Take a look at Bedboom. Like, they are shitting the bed, and that is a crazy team. One that I think everyone, and they had a lot of expectations as well. So, like, I was a little bit concerned on, I didn't know how they would actually be able to, if they would perform to expectations at EG and Beast Coast, but they, without a doubt, are definitely doing that. And like you guys are saying, that's what you need for the region. I thought, which I thought would actually help out with like Eastern Europe, where with Team Spirit winning TI would help out a little bit. I suppose it is, because maybe there's more teams coming through. I mean, you've got Hellraisers there that's being able to compete, but I think it's a similar thing that what we're speaking about with South America, where as long as you've got a couple really strong teams and they're on this upwards trajectory, then they're going to pull everyone up with them as well.
What I love about them is that they're raw as well. They give a lot of emotion, especially like Chris Luck, for example. Every single win, that shirt's coming off, baby. It's time to celebrate. They're still respectful, but they're very like they don't filter their emotions a lot, which I love to see.
And they give great interviews. Chris Luck gave a great interview as well, which was good to hear. So it's nice when you get a little bit of an insight from some of these players after they get those wins.
Yeah, and I was watching Dreamleague earlier this morning as well, and Stinger gave a really good interview in English as well.
Yeah.
And having those guys really kind of put themselves on the stage like that and speak in a second language is really awesome to see that these guys are doing so much for their region. But yes,
I was sorry. I was just going to say, with also the backing they're getting now from an organization like EG, because they didn't have that before. Like, that was something I heard from Bowie, actually, was that one of the teams in particular had a lot of difficulty with being able to fund boot camps because they didn't have that support behind them. But the fact that orgs are recognizing that this is a region that's growing, I know Matt just said like Alliance just dropped their South American team, but still, like, that's another organization that's trying to venture in and help out this region. So they're definitely on the come up.
Yeah,
I've shit on Alliance a little bit just through a couple of cheeky comments
like
here
you
and there.
always
but,
do.
No. But like their decision to drop that roster was Alliance, I think, doing the right thing because they wanted to keep the roster, but the players wanted to change. And one of the big things that Alliance said is we want stability with this team. So I think that would have kept the roster even with some lackluster performances. It's just the fact that too much change. They didn't respect the organization's wishes. So props to Alliance for wanting that stability within the region. It's just that these set of players didn't work out with it.
Yeah, big props, and I think that's something that a lot of teams can take a leaf out of their book. Is stability above all in esports is exactly what everybody needs. But either way, recapping some of the results from day number 2.
Oh yeah, Dreamleague.
Oh yeah, Dreamleague. I feel like this has just turned into not really a recap show; it's more just a Dota show. But with day number 2, a few teams really started to streak ahead in the standings. Team Liquid 7-1 at the end of day number 2 on Group B. I think going into Dreamleague, a lot of people just expected these guys to own because they have looked magical for far too long now. These guys are looking really, really good, and I'm super excited to see what they can do at the major. EG also 6-2 at the top of Group A. They look pretty good. They haven't streaked too far ahead of some of these other teams. 5-3, both respectively for Gaming Gladiators and Shopify Rebellion and Execration, Team Asta, and TSM all at 4-4 in Group A, whereas Group B is a little bit more spread. 3 teams on 5-3 between Beast Coast, OG, and Team Spirit, and then the other teams floating towards the ball on Talon, Nouns, Tundra. So I think at the end of day number 2, Group A, you were seeing that there was going to be a decent amount of contention between some of these teams. There was some obvious favorites, whereas Group B, it was basically liquid, and then everybody else was kind of Group B. So it's exciting to see that one, South America had two highly placed teams at the end of day number 2, and 3, that we were getting a little bit extra region representation with, Team Spirit starting to float towards the top, Exit Creation kind of doing their bit, but we all know the results at the end of these group stages. So, is what it is. But anyways, day number 3 is the next one that we're going to be jumping into. This is where we're actually started to figure out these teams that got locked in. So at the end of day number 3, EG, Gaming Gladiators, and Shopify Rebellion were all able to lock themselves into Group Stage 2 from Group A, and only Liquid from Group B locked themselves in at the end of day number 3. So, lads, this was, I would say, expected after you're looking at day number 2 results and the games that were going ahead. But I was kind of shocked that at the end of day number 3, you only had one team locked in from Group B.
Group of death, right? That's what a lot of people were saying. You might have I think Talon being completely out of contention at this stage probably was something that people weren't expecting. And again, that's off the back of them dropping a few of those series that they weren't expected to. I think if they were 6-6, people would be like, you know what, that's probably about where they are. But for them to just not be in contention whatsoever really made that race heat up.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the results, like as you said, like the 1-1 versus Nouns, the 1-1 versus Tundra, the games that they definitely could have won.
0-2 to Nick.
I just look at Group A and look at the bottom and see Entity and Hellraiser there. I'm like, what's gone wrong? Especially for Entity. This is it came out actually towards the end, I think on tiebreaker day, that Watson was very sick through a vast majority of the days, and on the last day when they had the Hawk stand, Watson had a really high fever. So remember, it's a big reason of some of the issues going on, but still besides that, we've seen Entity underperform, and Watson is at number 1 rank currently in Western Europe. Like, this guy, you should be able to build a team around him. He's fucking good, man. He's really good at the game, and you should be able to build
both of them. Amazing.
So I don't know what needs to change for Entity. There's some talk about the potential offlane, having some difficult times on Toby. Something is currently going wrong, and that should not, whether Watson's not fitting in, whether they need to get someone else. But I don't know if you can ever say maybe, is this weird of me to say? Like, I don't know if you can ever blame the number 1 carry in the world rank wise, because obviously he's talented, and it just seems like maybe the structure around him is just not good enough potentially. What do you guys think?
I think it's fair, but also on the same vein, I can definitely see how sometimes he might not be able to fit in, because obviously you're rank 1 and you've got to have like your own ideas about Dota. All these carry players do, and maybe that's just not meshing into their system, right? Like, it could just be a scenario where maybe Toby has certain ideas about things. Maybe they're looking at Katsuomi for a little bit more guidance, and him and Watson. Like, I have no idea about any of the internal stuff. This is just kind of speculation from what I've seen in a lot of different teams. That's the only thing that I could think of, is if they're having some internal conflicts, and it's not so much about the Dota, it's much more about the personalities. And that could be one reason that we've seen. I mean, we've all seen it across a million different games, and even Dota itself. When super teams come together, when you have really, really talented players, sometimes they just don't mesh, man. Like, on paper, you can talk about it till the cows come home. But if you're not getting results in the server, then I mean, I don't think it really matters. Yeah.
And another team that didn't get results is Hellraisers. They bodied their region. They were 7-0, and that is a region that's very competitive as well. You're going up against BetBoom, Spirit. I mean, Virtus Pro have a pretty strong. Yes, it's a new team as well, but they're still very strong. And I mean, you've got the organization of Navi, who, yes, I know didn't look very good with this new roster, but like, Hellraisers went 7-0 in a region that's incredibly difficult, but again, underperformed. And they kind of also underperformed at the major as well. If we think about it, they just got out of the groups, and they got knocked out first round, I believe, from Talon in the lower bracket. So, and that was in the major, they had the Hawk playing instead of Ramses. So now, of course, Ramses in, they've only made one change. I had a lot of expectations coming to them. Maybe it's just the experience is the big thing. Like,
they were playing with Iragi, weren't they, at the major? Like, I remember that was the whole Dahak situation.
Sorry. Yeah. So never mind. Let's say last tour then inside inside the 2 instead of the major. They had Dahak, and then the major they were playing with Yuragi. But
And
maybe
they'd
it's
won that Pinnacle tournament as well. So it's not like they've had bad results lately. Like you said, they crushed DPC.
It could just be an experience thing, right? Like Miro, he's very, very new, and Trees is new. Depreskid, aka Kiyotaka, like these are not people that have been around in the scene for quite some time. So maybe it's just a thing of need to get the reps in, need to get the experience. That really could just be the main thing.
I'm always a fan of a fellow weeb, and Kiyotaka absolutely is one.
I like his name so much better now instead of Depreskid. I must say, it's just.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll recommend you the anime that it's from.
I'm just not going to watch it. And we should get instantly off this topic because no one gives a shit about what you want to say about anime right now.
Aries, did you see at the bottom of the Google
Dota
Doc?
population says wrong.
Wait, what's at the end of the Google Doc?
The bottom of the Google Doc is anime recommendations.
Hey,
Oh, my dear.
you're locked in for the whole podcast.
Yeah, it's there. It's in the run of show, bro. I don't make the rules.
Dude, that's
I don't make the rules.
that's my bad. Obviously, I didn't do my homework. I didn't go through it all.
Yeah, you gotta be reading the doc, bro. You gotta read the doc. Also, I think kind of circling back to Exhale Raisers, I am kind of disappointed in Team Spirit. Watching through their tiebreakers when they do get to that was a little disappointing. They had a lot of opportunities to try and end those games, and the thing was, they literally just had to win one best of one. That is it. One best of one, and they're in, and they just couldn't do it. And it was kind of sad to watch because obviously these guys being XTI winners, they have made some changes with Lyle coming in instead of what's his name? I forgot the name.
Toronto, Tokyo.
Toronto, Tokyo. One of my favorite names of all time. Toronto, Tokyo. And they have not been able to perform. And maybe this could just be a conversation of the region as a whole is just starting to struggle internationally for whatever reason. Like maybe it is a little bit of lack of experience, lack of leaders, what have you. But the Eastern European teams just have not been able to do all too much on LAN recently. And, maybe with the new patch, they can change that. But I think a lot of people are expecting a lot from these Eastern European teams, and they're just not getting the results, man.
I think they're just having a difficult time with adjusting with Lyle coming in instead of Toronto, Tokyo. Like this is one of my favorite teams to watch. I really enjoy them. They've got a great side lane set up with Yatoro playing with Maposhka and then Collapse with Miro. Like they are some incredibly gifted players mechanically, and Lyle struggled in some games, and it's another, like we just spoke about, Hellraisers. That is also a team that has some people that aren't as experienced. Overall, this was, maybe that's one thing that we could plague Lyle a little bit, because really his first big team was Bet Boom. So maybe just with time we'll see them grow, and still this region's growing as well. I mean, again, Spirit winning TI was such a huge thing for the region. Like it just boosted up gigantically. We see Division 1 is very exciting to watch over there. So I think it's just going to be a little bit of time. It's going to be growing pains, but hopefully those growing pains work out.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully we get a bit more results from the Eastern Europeans, because they are very, very exciting to watch. Anyways, so let's jump into the final day. Well, final day outside of tiebreakers was day number 4. So at the end of day number 3, we already had 4 teams that were locked into group stage number 2. So their series for the remaining day does not matter. But the results of these matches did matter quite a lot, because looking across a lot of these matches, there was a lot of these 1-1s that all it took was going one way or another. Teams that were already eliminated, teams like Talon had already been eliminated, Nigma already got eliminated, Noun's already got eliminated, Entity already eliminated from the group stage. They still came into the final day and they put a good showing. Asta going 1-1 with Entity. If they 2-0'd Entity there, then Asta were completely out of the tiebreakers. Same thing with Team Spirit and Nigma. If Team Spirit just took that extra game up against Nigma, they were out of the tiebreakers. Same thing with Talon and OG. Like a lot of these series on the final day.
Execration EG as well.
Execration EG. Like all of these series, I looked at them and were like, oh, maybe some of these teams aren't going to care too much. But I think I don't want to talk for a lot of these teams, but it feels pretty good if you're eliminated from a tournament and you're forcing someone to play tiebreakers because they couldn't beat you that last game. That's got to make you feel pretty good about your tournament so far.
We know the type of people that play Dota, right? It's not
sadistic motherfuckers.
You have to lose. That's the most important thing. And that has to be it, right? Because seeding does not matter going into this second phase. If you're in, you're in. You have to play everyone anyway. So Yeah, really
on.
interesting. Maybe they were just doing it for the ESL Pro Tour rankings, you know?
Ah, there we go. It all comes back
man.
to it. It all comes back. Come, we got to speak about the fact that Spirit losing that game to Nigma against an offlane Ursa that went freaking pipe. What
Pipe
a Chad
first item.
build.
First
Pipe, he
item.
went another aura. Did he go pipe Vlad? So I'm trying to
Yeah, he
remember
did. He
now.
went pipe Vlad's then like Blink Basher or something.
Ah,
Do you remember what the kill score in that game was?
it was
2
crazy.
to 30.
God damn.
Dude, it's just the fact, and if they won that game, Spirit didn't have to play tiebreakers. They wouldn't have had to go through those crazy tiebreakers that they had versus OG, which went 67 minutes where they almost won. That was a monster game. BZM just popped off.
Oh, that
I mean,
Invoker.
crazy. BZM Invoker are probably the best in the world right now. And then Spirit versus Beast Coast as well. That went 54 minutes as well. Just imagine if you don't freaking lose to an offlane Ursa that goes pipe and Vlad's. Oh boy, that's if you're gonna mold after that, that's a game you're molding off.
Bro,
Hubs are only going to be broken for another week.
yeah.
Dude.
That like it's yeah, I remember when I saw that game and I went back and checked it on Dota Buff. I was like, surely, because I saw the draft and I was like, oh, maybe this is like Mind Control playing puck, right? And it was like a Smal Ursa mid and he just kind of dominated like a melee matchup. No, he went in the offlane and he got a 18-minute pipe and then a 21-minute Vlad's. Like, I'm trying to figure out like how does he kill an Anti-Mage and a Bat Rider? Like, he just runs at them with pipe, I guess, with an IO connecting to him. But like, it's mind-boggling that Nigma were already eliminated from the tournament. They just threw some shit at the wall. It stuck, and they went, "All right, enjoy your tiebreakers, Team Spirit. See you later."
Yeah, and then you know what they did next game? 2 to 30.
Yeah.
Like,
26 minutes.
and they were fighting for one kill as well. I really thought that was going to be a game where we were not going to get a kill. So it's just so funny to see what happens in game 1 to game 2. Spirit, that would have been a rough second game. You know you're winning, but it's like we got tiebreakers now. We got tiebreakers because we lost.
Yeah, that's rough, and I think that is just kind of embodies the spirit of a lot of these teams because just being able to come in and throw some shit at the wall and it's stuck and makes you feel good. So, I mean, it made the Dota entertaining. It made this last final day of tiebreakers super entertaining. So I did like a lot of the games coming out of these series as well. I was kind of rooting for TSM to try and get one over the top of Gaming Gladiators, but they weren't able to pull that second game out. We're seeing a little bit more Lion float in. A whole lot more of this Shadow Fiend has been popping up. A whole lot more of this Anti-Mage as well. So, I mean, Group Stage 2, after day number 1, I mean, it's looking pretty pog, boys. Looking pretty pog.
Is some surprising results as well over on that first day. So, wonder if it's going to continue. I mean, it's a very long group stage as well. We're even best of 3s now, which is the interesting change, going from best of 2s in the first group now to best of 3s. What do you guys kind of make of that? Do you like maybe the switch up that we see now out of the best of 3s?
It gives you results that, you know, I think that's the kind of duality of when you see these tournaments that have best of 2s, you're like, you kind of feel like you've been blue balled by the 1-1s, right? Especially when you have like
being edged all day.
yeah, like you have a good series and like game 2's like really back and forth and you're like, oh, I can't wait to see how this series pans out. And they're like, the series is over, guys. We're going into series 2 and you're like, come on, bro. What?
So close.
You're like, give it to me, please. But that's why I like best of 3s because you get the result. But obviously, when you have 16 teams playing a full round robin across like 4 days, whatever it was, you just have to have best of 2s. Otherwise, they're there for 25 hours, and you can't be having that.
And the TOs aren't going to do that as well. Like we still have to keep in mind about the structure behind it, that's multiple extra days added on. That's a lot of extra money that needs to be spent just to keep the players there, to keep the talent there, and everything else. So an interesting thing, I know this is more about the first group stage, but just quickly, because group stage 2 day 1 just went, even though it's best of 3s, 3 of those series were 2-0s, which is kind of interesting to see. They didn't even need that third game.
And a lot of them are like stomps too, and like some of them are in like directions that you wouldn't expect. So Group stage 2 is setting up to be very poggers. Let's try and get these tiebreakers done, and we can start to wrap up this episode, boys, as we get closer towards the 50-minute mark. So, final day was the tiebreakers. So, for Group A, they were fighting for 1 slot, whereas Group B, they're fighting for 2 slots. So, it was both 3 teams from both of the 2 groups were able to play for it. Team Asta, Execration, and TSM in Group A were fighting for 1 slot. And in Group B, it was Team Spirit, OG, and Beast Coast, all fighting for 2 spots as well. So tiebreaker A, game number 1 between Asta and Execration. I mean, we already touched on it, but Asta, like, they fell off the wagon. Those 2 games that they played against TSM and Execration were nothing. So it was only really the series between TSM and Execration that I felt like was going to determine who was going forward. And, unfortunately for Execration, they lost it out to TSM, which was a comeback from TSM because I think Bryle had probably one of the worst starts he's ever had on Puck. And then he came back and played one of his best games on Puck ever. So
It was a interesting draft as well, where I think even Fog brought it up throughout the game. TSM were playing with a lot of damage mitigation with the Howl and with the Fade Bolt. And pretty much throughout that game, you had a Ricky 3, so Tina wasn't really going to scale. And a lot of your damage was coming through the Morphling, but with the Howl reduction, he was just doing nothing inside the fights, which is a very interesting kind of strategy. I mean, TSM love the Lycan. Kazani, it's probably his best hero. So it's just, I wonder, because that's a very underrated aspect to the Lycan's toolkit. And I think that was a big reason of why they were able to win that game. And like you said, that was the important game in tiebreaker A.
anything from you, Denog, to add?
My boys, they couldn't get it done. Justice for C. I mean, it's kind of crazy that after all of this, with all the different teams and regions coming through, it's just 3 regions that went through to stage 2.
Yeah. That's wild to me when I look at it, and I'm like, you get all these like circle jerkers about, oh, Western Europe, where is our 6th slot, guys? Where is it? And then you see a tournament like this where there are 6 teams out of the 16 that are Western Europe teams, but when you go into group stage 2, most of them survive.
4 made it.
Yeah, so like 4 out of the 6 survived, whereas some of these other regions have 0 representation. So maybe there is a little bit of truth to it, and it is a little disappointing that we didn't get like a Chinese or a Southeast Asian team going into group stage 2. I thought that might have been a little better.
Don't worry, Whitemon's flying the flag for us. He's doing it.
But TSM they did deserve that after being able to claw it through towards the end there. Which is good, but the Team Spirit versus OG and Beast Coast series, yeah, that's one where I was sad for Team Spirit. But I mean, OG, I don't know what has happened in the last couple of weeks, but they have picked their socks up. I mean, BZM seems like he's fighting for his life on that roster, and he is playing some immaculate Dota right now.
Every series they get better. It's just like I don't know what you want to call it, more confidence, because they haven't had like massive changes lately. It's still the same roster, just switch the coach up,
Mm-hmm.
I heard Seb speak about it a little bit on Gorg's stream, where I think Gorg asked him a question: how much involvement does he actually have with OG? And he said there's no like gameplay stuff that he helps work with them on, but it was more the mentality thing and the mindset that they need to take into games. And he said there was kind of a conversation that happened, and as soon as they finished the combo, it seems like the team just completely flipped. It's a new team, and I don't know how much that is off the back of the convo because he didn't go too much into detail about it. But that's the one really nice thing about OG is that you do have that backing behind you. You've got an incredible structure with TI winners that will be there for you to help out if needed, even if it's not in the game, because we all know Dota is a huge mental game as well. So it seems from that, dude, they are a monster team. This is a really scary team now, like heading into group stage 2 and potentially playoffs.
I just get flashbacks to like those true sights of the Kiev Major and Seb able to like unlock Anna's full potential. OG able to get that, comeback on enemy soil when it's being played against VP, the Eastern European team. And man, I know he's going to play Dota until the day he drops dead, but the man should be whatever you want to call it, life coach, therapist, whatever, because he's going to be able to unlock your potential.
Yeah, I think he really has done and shown time and time again that he can unlock the best. Like even in the most recent documentary, right? Like you can see how much he was able to help that OG team in the major that he stood in for, and was able to just kind of unlock a lot of these really young stars. And it is exciting to see when you have a team that is able to pick themselves up from, I would say, a lackluster DPC for OG. They definitely wanted to finish a little higher. Yeah, like they wanted to be a little bit more dominant going in towards the major, but scraping through at the end, they'll still always
I'm happy for
take that.
DM, I gotta say.
Yeah.
He is one of my favorite players, and he finally gets to go to another major. It's been quite a while since he's been there. Previously playing with VP, of course, there was a bunch of issues with that, but now they're going to get the chance to be able to play on LAN, and couldn't be happier for him.
Yeah, and lucky it's in Berlin as well, so hopefully OG don't have any issues trying to get some visas and all that kind of stuff, because I know that has plagued them in the past. Either way, with that, at the end of Group Stage 1, we have figured out our 8 teams that are going into Group Stage 2, gentlemen. It is going to be from Group A, Gaming Gladiators, Shopify Rebellion, Evil Geniuses, and TSM after they won out their tiebreakers. And then Group B is Team Liquid, Tundra Esports, Beast Coast, and OG. So our 8 teams going in are going to be those 8 teams. So before we start getting towards the end of the episode, is there anything that surprised you guys from these top 4s? Is there any teams that you see here in Group A or Group B that you're like, I'm actually surprised that they were able to eke out in their group?
Maybe a little bit OG. I thought Talon would have been closer, because it really wasn't close. They weren't even, within reaching distance of being able to force those tiebreakers. And maybe I would have put TSM a tiny bit lower, and probably Shopify as well. Shopify only because they had the stand-in, and we weren't 100% sure how they were going to be playing with Mikey. But I thought maybe, honestly, Asta, Execration, Hellraisers, they were all ones that I really thought were in contention. But there's no massive shocks here. I think every team that made it through absolutely deserved it.
Same for you, Aries?
Yeah, same for me. It's like Matt said, everyone deserves it. No real shocks. Maybe just some. I thought it might be a little bit more closer from some of the teams that it got relegated. Got eliminated, I should say. Again, Hellraiser, Entity, Asta. But no, I think everyone there. That's the big thing heading into it, though. It's a freaking major. We knew everyone here had the potential to go through. Maybe some teams less than others, but really you could make an argument for 14 teams to move over and qualify to that second group. So no, I no surprises really.
You just have to look as well. It's kind of crazy. The teams that I'm just going to use Talon and Execration as an example because we're from C, right?
Yep.
I just got to. Talon lost 2-0 to Spirit and to Nigma, 2 other teams that didn't qualify. They won Tundra, Liquid, OG, and Beast Coast. All the teams that qualified out of their group. So they're clearly good enough to take games off of the top ones. They just kind of lost the games that they should have won. Same sort of story comes through with Execration, right? 1-1 against Gaiman. Who else was really doing that much? 1-1 against EG. Again, not many other people doing that. They won TSM, but then they lost 0-2 to Asta. Yes, Shopify kind of dumpstered them a little bit, but you know what I mean, right? This is how close a lot of the regions are across the board. So, I really expected them to maybe be able to eke out a few of those wins, but that's where that late game mentality, the closeness, the composure really is going to be more important for these teams going forward. And it's something for them to work on because they've got a little bit of time now before the major. And who knows, maybe having that ability to just sit back and purely watch and not have to worry about playing is going to let them maybe see a few things and not reveal them before the major happens, so that when the major comes with this new patch, then they're going to be able to show up and surprise a few.
Yeah, exactly, and I think this is kind of just leading into our final topic of discussion. We're gonna get rid of.
You like that segue?
We're gonna get rid of the one that's actually on the run show, and we're gonna talk about this. So the teams that did not get to qualify to Group Stage 2 and will be still in Europe, they're still going to be playing around because a lot of these teams are going to be going towards the major. Teams like Nigma and Nouns, you might start to put a question mark on them about what they're going to be doing, but either way, we'll talk about them a little bit later on. Some of these teams that did not qualify, they have the next couple of days to continue scrimming against these teams that are going to be going into Group Stage 2, because if you're a team in Group Stage 2, you're going to have to scrim against these teams that aren't in that group, which is going to be the teams who didn't qualify. And then as soon as this patch drops, you don't have to officially show any of the strats that you're working on for this new patch. Yes, that could be a blessing or a curse, the fact that you don't get to test some things out in the field. But, if you're a team like Talon, who has these players that can play all these weird niche stuffs, like, I'm looking towards Jabs in the offlane where he's just going to be able to whip out some hero and teams might not be able to deal with it. That could be a bit of a positive, right? Because yeah, like if these heroes just become chucked in the captain's mode, if you're a team like Talon who definitely have the right stuff to take teams off these good teams in Western Europe and you get to practice in the dark, I mean, I guess that's kind of just finding the silver lining in the dark cloud, right?
I wonder how much of this time, because the whispers and rumors have been that this is going to be one of the biggest patches ever since Dota Reborn. It might be
huge,
for example. Like,
Whoa!
7.4. I think that's going to be the absolute. But how much of their time is going to be spent just loading up into the map terrain and finding all the spots and finding all the new little, because there's the spots like in front of Roche Pit where you can't be seen but you can see out. Same with the one on the top lane, like all this sort of stuff. A lot of this
nerd shit.
The nerd shit, basically. So I guess Tundra's winning the major.
There we go. Right,
well, I mean, when you got Owie 2000 sitting in the background, literally just going over the numbers and the hard code,
he's
you could probably win it again, yeah.
Oh, dude, he is geeking. Honestly, I think everyone's geeking, though, with knowing that the patch is going to be coming out shortly. So it's a good day to be a Dota fan.
Definitely is going to be a good day. So I'm excited to see what Group Stage 2 is going to bring us. So we will just have a quick chat about the 8 teams that we think are going to go forward here in Group Stage number 2. So we already figured out which 8 teams are going forward. There has been one day of competition, so try not to spoil all too much because we will have another video about that, lads, a little bit later on. So I want to hear the top 4 teams that you guys think are going to go through the playoffs. We'll start with you, Mr. Danog. 4 teams, pick them now.
Gaming.
Yeah.
Liquid. Shopify and Beast Coast.
Ooh.
Gaming, Liquid. And I think both the South American teams, Beast Coast and EG.
Ooh, okay. I'm going to go a little different. I'm going to say Shopify, Gaming, OG, and EG. I think those 4 are going to make it. I do feel like Team Liquid can get a lot of work done, but yesterday Gaming Gladiators really kind of told them.
Wait, did
You told us not to do spoilers.
Hey, okay, all right. I'm using that to bias my opinion a little bit.
Hang on, did you not put Liquid in your top 4?
Yes, I didn't put Liquid in my top 4.
Are you cooked?
Let him cook.
Let him
cook.
Nah.
I know this team. I know this team is fucking amazing, right?
All right, Luke, let me paint this for you. As much as you're a Shopify simp, that is what Aries is as a
I'm a Shopify simp as well, but
not as much as you are a Liquid simp.
This is my Hail Mary. This is like I'm gonna look like the most 5-head Giga Chad on the fucking planet if this pays off. But also in the same vein, I can say, hey, it was just a Hail Mary because everyone would expect Team Liquid to get top 4. So I'm not going to look that stupid if I say that they're not going to make top 4, right?
Maybe it's tactical. Maybe they want to get 5th so that they don't reveal stuff on the new patch so they can win the major.
Smart.
Or maybe they want to qualify straight away to a $15 million tournament.
Bro, they don't care about prize pool. Like,
that's right.
They're like one of the like this Team Liquid org has been around for literally eons. I don't think they care about prize money. Like these guys are gonna have a pretty healthy salary. I think for anything, I think they just want to win off the fact that they are pure competitors, if anything. But I still do. But
like you don't think they'll win.
No, I don't. I think they'll come 5th. I think there'll be some tiebreakers and they'll lose out in tiebreakers.
Liquid are garbage. You heard it from the host's mouth.
No. I've said it really tight. I think these guys are really, really good. I'm just throwing a Hail Mary out there.
Mate, hang on. Danog and his gaslighting. Name it, I better do a whole.
No, you see, it's fun when I do it to other people, though, right?
It is kind of. I do it. I don't have to put up with it.
Are you gaslighting him about enjoying being gaslit? Like, come on, bro.
Gaslighting doesn't exist, all right? You're just a crazy person.
Oh, what the hell?
Oh, holy shit! I can't believe it's getting that deep. So I think that was pretty productive, boys. We just ticked over an hour here. We talked about some stuff. I think we talked about Nigma for like 20 minutes. So hopefully
They
the Nigma
deserve
fans ain't coming after us.
No,
Really
no.
deserved it.
I do think that they, I do think that with the star power they have on that team, I really hope that they get back to their winning ways. But yeah, that has been the Dota 2 recap show, ladies and gentlemen. This is episode
I
number
see
one.
more note on
No,
the
anime
we're not
recommendations.
doing it. Ah, fuck off.
Okay, so let's go through these real quickly. I brought up my anime list where I've been able to note them all down. I gotta remember. I'm just trying to think of ones that Aries is going to appreciate as well.
Hey, what are these? What are these noises popping up?
I don't know what those noises are. Did he just leave the Discord? Probably.
I don't know what's going on. I'm still here. But Aries is back, anyways. Oh shit! Okay, so anime recommendations: just watch Jujutsu Kaisen, watch Chainsaw Man if you can get through the first 3 episodes. Either way, that is the end of episode 1 here of the Dota 2 recap show. Thank you, boys, for joining me for episode 1. We will be back with episode 2 just after Group Stage 2 has been finished, and hopefully, please pray to Gaben and Icefrog that we have a new patch to talk about, because holy shit, that episode is going to be bonkers. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us here. Episode 2 will be coming out very, very soon. Make sure you follow these 2 lovely gentlemen over at Twitter as well, at Denog and at Aries_HD. So as always, ladies and gentlemen, stay safe, and we'll see you guys for the next one.